plow decides to stop working. It just randomly stops working. Now, a plow truck is not like a typical vehicle. It has a crank battery, an auxiliary battery, and they're connected by a battery isolator, also called a solenoid. It also uses a plow motor relay to take amperage from the auxiliary battery and feed it into the 12-volt plow motor. And this is when the plow isolator determines that there is user input from the controller, which is your control stick actually in the cab of the vehicle. So the plow motor spins a drive shaft when it works, and that drive shaft pushes hydraulic fluid from the reservoir into the valve pathways to manipulate the hydraulic pistons that move the plow back and forth. Now, it's important to note that any of these systems can fail, but when they do fail, they should all have very unique symptoms. The first thing that we can check here is to make sure that nothing is actually throttling voltage from reaching the plow motor. The truck must be running for these tests. If your alternator fails, you will know very quickly that the system is actually starving for voltage. The alternator should be supplying above 13.4 volts to the main crank battery. A simple voltage test on the main crank battery will be able to confirm this. Now, knowing that the alternator is healthy, we can check if our battery isolator has failed. You can determine this again by a simple voltage test on the auxiliary battery. If the auxiliary battery is above, say, 13 volts, it means that the battery isolator and the wire from the crank to auxiliary battery is not throttling voltage. Okay, so if we have a healthy voltage reading at the auxiliary battery, we should now be getting that same voltage on the hot terminal of the plow motor relay. If this is true, then nothing through this part of the circuit, from the crank to the battery isolator to the auxiliary battery, is throttling voltage. Nothing is throttling that. Now we want to see if the plow motor relay is actually functioning and supplying the plow motor, which is right here. We want to see if voltage is actually reaching that plow motor. How do we do that? Well, we can manipulate this control stick, which is actually in the cab of the vehicle,
and it'll be some kind of variant of this.
We can go up, we can go left, or we can go right. The relay for the plow motor should clunk if you go left, up, or right, and now send voltage to the plow motor directly. This output here is hooked up directly to that 12-volt plow motor. You can measure voltage on the output terminal right here, or you can measure directly at the plow motor terminal itself.
For example, here's a Western plow motor. We can see the positive terminal right here. Check the voltage.
They should both see a healthy voltage around 13 or more at each site if your vehicle is running with the alternator running with the battery isolator closed. What happens when you manipulate that control stick is that the joystick actually tells the plow isolator module,
which may look like this on certain setups.
Okay, it tells that module to send a switching signal, which is just 12 volts, to close the plow motor relay. And by closing the plow motor relay, we are energizing it. And all that means is we're taking 12 volts here from our hot feed from our auxiliary battery, and we're taking the 12 volts, we're making a connection through that motor relay, and we are going all the way to the 12 volts on the plow motor.
Same concept here with different visuals. When energized, the relay closes and it sends full battery power to the plow motor. The only thing left to explain here is how the control signal works to do that. Okay, so we have the auxiliary battery here supplying 12 volts constant hot. Then we have our 12-volt control signal, and that closes the relay, energizing it, giving that hot 12 volts to the plow motor.
And that should move that plow motor. And that is regardless of the valve control circuit, which I'm not going to go into.
So again, if the plow motor relay is successfully energizing by getting 12 volts from the input to output, the relay's in good shape. If not, the relay may be your problem. If the plow motor is receiving voltage 12 volts, 13 volts, or above, the plow motor should be running. If it's not, the plow motor may be burnt out.